The sun hung low over the rolling plains, casting long amber shadows that danced like ghosts across the riverbank. Macklin Hayes, a towering figure with shoulders broad enough to rival the hills themselves, walked slowly along the muddy edge of the river. The morning mist clung to his coat, dripping like liquid silver from the brim of his hat. He had always been a man of few words, letting his actions speak louder than any boast, but even he felt a stir of unease as the soft murmur of water carried a distant cry. Before he could identify it, a sudden splash tore through the air, urgent and desperate. Macklin's eyes narrowed, scanning the rippling currents. Two figures struggled against the river's pull, limbs flailing with frantic energy, voices calling in panic. One, taller and older, fought with a tense elegance. The other, younger and smaller, tried to mimic her sister's bravery but faltered under the water's merciless grip. Without hesitation, Macklin waded in, boots sinking into the cold mud beneath, each step a battle against the relentless current. The water lapped at his chest, icy and unforgiving, yet his resolve never wavered. He reached the elder girl first, his massive hands gripping her arms, hauling her free with the kind of strength that seemed almost unnatural, yet entirely gentle in its intent. She coughed, water dripping from her hair, eyes wide and filled with a mixture of fear and awe. "Are you hurt?" Macklin's voice was calm, steady, a rare softness in a world that often demanded harshness. She shook her head, though her lips trembled, and Macklin offered a small, reassuring nod before turning to the younger sister, whose laughter bubbled nervously even through her fear. He swept her up as well, cradling her against his chest, and the current, as if recognizing the inevitability of his courage, began to loosen its grip. The riverbank came into view, muddy and littered with driftwood, yet each step was deliberate, careful. Macklin set the girls down gently, brushing wet strands of hair from their faces, and for a brief moment the world seemed to hold its breath. The sisters exchanged glances, an unspoken question hovering between them. Macklin offered only a subtle smile, aware that some truths required patience, not explanation. "You'll be safe now," he murmured, though he could not have known just how true those words would soon become. By morning's end, word of the missing daughters had spread, carried by riders who thundered across the plains with a sense of urgency born from bloodlines and honor. Chief Wyatt arrived at Macklin's homestead with his warriors, dust swirling around their boots, faces solemn under feathered headdresses. The air was thick with anticipation, the quiet tension of a world where a single misstep could cost lives. Macklin stepped forward, calm and unflinching, yet inside his chest a storm of uncertainty churned. He had no idea who these girls were, yet he knew instinctively that the arrival of this formidable man and his warriors could not be ignored. When Chief Wyatt laid eyes on his daughters, relief mingled with indignation. "They are with you?" His voice was both accusation and demand, a mixture only a leader who has borne the weight of generations could carry. Macklin nodded, respectful but unflinching. The chief studied him, a thousand questions flickering in his gaze, before deciding that words alone would not suffice. He gathered his daughters, glancing at Macklin with an inscrutable expression, and then, in an unexpected gesture, extended an invitation. "Come with me to our village. See how we live, and perhaps you will understand what it means to protect life in its fullest measure." Macklin's heart thudded with curiosity and anticipation as he followed, leaving behind the quiet solitude of his land for the vibrant, ceremonial life of the Comanche. Fires crackled in the evening, painting flickering shadows across faces marked by resilience and pride. The scent of pine and sage filled the air, blending with the earthy aroma of sweat and leather. Macklin felt the weight of history pressing against him, the legacy of a people he had yet to truly know. Payuna, the elder daughter, watched him with careful, calculating eyes, curious about this giant stranger who had saved them without a thought of reward or recognition. She could not yet place the unease that swelled in her chest. Was it awe, suspicion, or something entirely different that stirred so quietly within? Evenings passed with subtle exchanges, small gestures that spoke more than words ever could. Macklin offered water, adjusted cloaks, shared stories in low murmurs that carried the sound of wind through the canyon. Payuna noticed how his gaze lingered, how his presence seemed to hold a protective gravity that extended beyond her sister and herself. Tiana, playful yet perceptive, teased them gently, sensing the slow, unspoken bond forming like roots stretching beneath soil. And as night deepened, stars mirrored their unspoken thoughts, twinkling with an almost conspiratorial twinkle that hinted at destiny, yet withheld full revelation. But the quiet was fragile. When Chief Waya became aware of Macklin's growing connection with Payuna, anger shadowed his stoic features. "In our tribe, marriages must remain within the blood of our people," he said, his voice low but firm, echoing like distant thunder across the plains. Macklin bowed respectfully, yet his heart refused to leave. The love that had begun as quiet admiration had transformed into a commitment he could not deny. He departed, but not completely. Secret meetings under starlit skies, whispered words and gentle touches that carried more weight than any formal declaration, became their lifeline. Each encounter was a delicate balance between fear and longing, between respect for the tribe and the desire for something wholly human. Then came the attack. Shadows fell upon the village, arrows slicing through the night air, the crack of hooves thundered like distant storms. Macklin returned, drawn not by obligation alone but by the unspoken duty that had taken root in his soul. He fought with precision and bravery, small acts of grace and protection shaping the course of the battle. He lifted a fallen warrior from the mud, shielded a child from harm, and in every action, the tribe witnessed the embodiment of courage entwined with humanity. Chief Waya observed silently, the furrows in his brow gradually softening, as understanding grew where anger had once held sway. After the dust settled, Macklin's intentions were no longer questioned. "I did not come merely for your daughter," he said quietly, the night wind carrying his words like a gentle hymn. "I came because I cannot stand injustice. I came because all life deserves protection, and love, true love, cannot be constrained by law alone." The chief, moved by this clarity and courage, finally consented to Macklin's union with Payuna. The wedding was a celebration of life and resilience, of soft firelight reflecting against feathered ornaments and the serene faces of those who had survived both river and war. Macklin and Payuna moved together through the ceremony with a quiet intimacy, gestures of care and respect speaking more profoundly than words. They began life together under the vast sky of the plains, each sunrise a promise, each evening a shared refuge from the world's chaos. Time, patient and unhurried, gave them joy and laughter and tenderness, the bond strengthened with every passing day. Months later, the birth of twin daughters brought new rhythms and warmth to their home. Macklin remained at Payuna's side throughout her pregnancy, attentive, protective, and ever-present. Small acts, a hand on her shoulder, a whispered encouragement, the steady warmth of his presence, became sacred rituals of devotion. The plains seemed to embrace them, wind through the grass carrying their laughter, while the tribe, now fully trusting, respected the life they had built together. And yet, Macklin often stood alone at the edge of the horizon, watching the sun dip behind distant hills, reflecting on a world that had tested him in both body and heart. In the endless rivers and shifting sands, he would murmur to himself, "Courage and love quietly carve the paths of our lives. Even the strongest among us must learn the language of the heart, for it speaks where the thunder cannot reach." The girls slept peacefully under the roof of their home, Tiana visiting often with playful whispers and shared stories. The tribe thrived, the bonds of family and friendship holding firm against the wild unpredictability of the plains. Macklin, Payuna, and their daughters stood as living proof that love tempered with courage, humanity, and quiet heroism could endure, even flourish, amidst the trials of the untamed West. And beneath every dawn and every evening star, a sense of infinite possibility lingered, a promise that life, with all its perils and wonders, could be met with steadfast hearts, and that sometimes the greatest victories were measured not by conquest, but by the love and care given to those who needed it most.